Welcome back, you guys. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Swadik Mayanja, and I am Q the Nurse. And on this channel, I bring you news, current events, research, fun topics for nurses everywhere.
You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
Starting with a shout out to all the nurses who came out to the Boston Red Sox Nurse Appreciation Night. It was an absolute blast. Check out my vlog. There should be a link in the description box below of the excitement throughout the day. It was a wet one. The game got booted an hour later because it was raining, pouring, thundering, scary stuff. But us nurses, we fought through. I got to get on the field. I got to meet Nurse Blake, and it was an exciting time. So shout out to all the nurses in Boston that came out, and outside of Boston that came out to the Red Sox Nurse Appreciation Night. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. Moving on to the actual news of the week. So the U.S. healthcare system is ranked the worst out of all developed nations. Yes, the absolute worst. Is this news? No, it's not. Bernie Sanders, my homie, has been preaching this since who knows when, right? So the U.S. ranks worst amongst 11 wealthy nations in terms of efficiency, equity, and outcomes, despite having the world's most expensive healthcare system. And I know what the first thing everyone and their mother's going to say when they hear this news. They're going to say, oh, Q, it's the most expensive because we are the largest. No, most expensive per capita. Understand that. So it's a ratio, right? Based on how many people, how much are we spending per person, per patient. And even with us spending the most on each patient, on each person, we are still ranked the worst when it comes to efficiency, equity, and outcomes. The Commonwealth Fund report compares the U.S. with 10 other nations: France, Australia, Germany, Canada, Sweden, New Zealand, Norway, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and the UK were all judged to be superior based on their various factors. These include quality of care, access to doctors, and equity throughout the country. Results of the study rely on the data from Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development, the World Health Organization, and interviews from physicians and patients alike. And the number one reason, the biggest reason why America is ranked so low, is considered to be so bad compared to the other countries, is a striking take-home from the report was the need for equity throughout the nation. Disparities in access to services signal the need to expand insurance to cover the uninsured and to ensure that all Americans have an accessible medical home. It said a lack of universal health care was noted as the key difference between the U.S. and other industrial nations. Bernie Sanders, God damn it, Bernie Sanders. This is the answer. Universal health care. A single payer system, Medicare for all. We need to jump on the train. Every other industrial nation, developed nation is doing it, and they're doing it right. The reason we're last is because we're not. We believe capitalism is the answer to everything. We don't want the government to help us with anything, but understand this, right? Our Constitution begins with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Remember that. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life is first. Having a healthy life should be a right, not a privilege. Let us get to a place where everyone has healthcare, access to healthcare, right? If you choose not to go because you don't want to go, that is up to you. But it should never be a situation in which you are not allowed to go because you can't pay for it. That is when we get to the situation where we are ranked last in all industrial nations. Moving on. I love this story. Power to the people. I am all about it, right? A couple of weeks ago, I went to a rally for nurses, and now I'm talking about our sister profession. I've always believed to the core of me, if nurses were to have a sibling, if nurses were to have a brother, if nurses were to have a partner in crime in a different profession, that profession would be education, specifically teachers. And the North Carolina teachers just closed schools with a massive protest. And this happened May 16th, a Wednesday, 2018. And they did it in a big way. So thousands of North Carolina teachers poured into downtown Raleigh and marched to the state's General Assembly on Wednesday morning in the latest in the series of red state public school teacher uprisings across the country. If you did not know this was happening, you've been living underneath a goddamn rock. Teachers down south have been protesting and protesting and protesting because teachers down south have not been getting paid. Teachers down south have to have two jobs to just support themselves and their families. Right? It's just not right. These teachers are paying out of pocket to get their students textbooks, pencils, crayons, the whole goddamn nine. It's crazy. It's horrible. It's the worst situation ever. Right? So the demonstration was believed to be the largest teacher protest in North Carolina's history, with educators creating a sea of red at Fayetteville Street and inside the assembly galleries as they demanded more public school funding and better salaries for school staffers. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's understand this, right? The majority, and when I say the majority, I don't mean 51%, I mean 90+% of students in America go to public schools. Can we please, together, can we come together and pay the teachers who are educating the students who will be the future of this nation a fair wage, so they're not suffering, so they're not tired, because after they have to go through an entire full day of school, they have to go to a second and third job just to feed themselves and their family. Can we please come to that conclusion? Please. Since 2009, real wages for teachers have fallen by 9.4% in North Carolina. Following a successful teacher strike in West Virginia in March, union organizers in North Carolina began discussing what they could do. Very smart. The strikers have worked in other states. In Oklahoma, teachers won an average of $6,000, a $6,000 raise. That's amazing. Congratulations, Oklahoma. And in West Virginia, which is the core of me, and I love this, I love them for doing this. In West Virginia, the teachers strike won a 5% raise for all state workers. That is my favorite quote ever, right? These teachers who are marching to get to be paid fairly, these teachers who are marching and protesting so they don't have to work 3 jobs to support their families, these teachers that put in their hearts and souls into our children so they can grow up to be educated, well-rounded human beings. Not only were they protesting for themselves, but they were protesting for the state workers that they, share the community with. I absolutely love that. Congratulations, West Virginia. I hope North Carolina can follow suit. Go protest. Make sure you get yourself heard. Teachers are a large majority of the population. If they all come together like they have been, this will continue to happen. This will continue to happen. I wish we didn't have to fight for this hard, but you guys are fighting and you guys are making things happen. I think it's absolutely amazing. Thank you. I'm hoping for the best. And I'm supporting y'all. Moving on. I don't want to scare anybody, but I'm going to scare ya. Ebola is back. It is back. Yes. I hope y'all are ready. So the Congo Ebola outbreak turns up in a large city. And this is a really bad thing. When Ebola happens in a large city, it is much worse than Ebola happening in a rural outskirts of a town. You know why, as nurses? Because this is highly infectious. You can pass this disease through bodily fluids. And once you do, that ends up being a really bad thing. And when you're in a city, bad things happen. Let me just give you some context and we'll go from there. An Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has spread to a large city, and the World Health Organization has called an emergency meeting to talk about what to do. I hope you would. I really do hope you would. It's only one case so far, one case in the large city. But a case of Ebola in a city is a serious matter. Ebola regularly breaks out in remote, rural parts of Africa, but usually causes only a few dozen or a few hundred cases. In 2014, when it hit a more connected region of West Africa with several urban centers, it spread to more than 28,000 people and killed 11,000 of them. So you do see the difference. When it's in a rural area, 1 to 2, maybe 100 people get affected and pass away. When it hits a city, 28,000 in 2014 were in fact affected, and 11,000 of them passed away. It's a horrible, crazy disease, and we want to pump the brakes right now. So good for the World Health Organization for jumping in early this time. So the World Health Organization says 44 cases of Ebola have been reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, most in a remote northwestern province that is very hard to reach. This is a concerning development, but we now have better tools than ever before to combat Ebola. They continue by saying the World Health Organization and our partners are taking decisive actions to stop further spread of the virus. So remember what happened in 2014? We also had one nurse come in to the country and everyone's super scared that she had Ebola. She was contained. I mean, people lost their goddamn minds. I don't think that's going to be the situation this time. World Health Organization is jumping on it. They don't want a repeat of history. I think they're smart. Good for y'all. Good for y'all. Cross your fingers. But if it does come here, get your hazmat suits ready, nurses, because we're going to have to jump on this ourselves. Let's go. And now, my favorite segment of the week, every week. The nurse of the week. And this nurse, she touches the soul. She touches the bottom. I mean, she takes caring to an entirely different level. So let's talk about this. So a nurse adopts a baby boy with an incurable disease after foster families refuse to take him. It's a really sad story, but at the same time, it's the most heartwarming story ever. I mean, you think you're a good nurse, you go to work, you put in all your effort, you do all of this heart, like this caring, you give you compassion, empathy, the whole goddamn nine. And it's great because once you get home, you can leave that stuff at work. But this nurse said, no, I'm going to bring this young boy with me home. And I love it. Let me tell you about this home. Let me tell you. So, a nurse adopted a baby boy who was admitted to her hospital ward with an incurable disease after no one else offered to take him home. Several foster families rejected Josh Burdell, who has a life-limiting muscle-wasting disease. So, mom of 9, I love how they say mom. So, mom of 9, Sarah Roon, 54, began the adoption process when he was 1 month old. So this right away. She did not wait 1 month. 1 month. All the foster families were like, I can't, I don't want to, I'm not able to. And 1 month into the baby's life, she said, I know the disease, I'm a nurse, I know what's going on, I've been taking care of this young boy, and I can't let him go alone, so I am going to take him into my family. Sarah, you're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. 7 years on, and she is trying to raise funds to find a cure for his condition, known as congenital myotonic dystrophy. Josh grew up like any other child up until the age of 2 and could walk and talk, but he now needs a wheelchair and can no longer speak. Sarah said, and this is how it all happened. When he was born, he was only given a year to live maximum. Well, Josh, you're breaking him. You're doing superstar kind of shit. You're an inspiration to millions by just breaking this barrier. I don't know where these doctors come from, but every story you hear about this, these doctors are like, yeah, you have 2 months to live, and next thing you know, they've been living for 10 years. But Josh, you're amazing. You're amazing. Sarah, thank you for supporting Josh, okay? 1 year maximum, but I just looked at him, and because we thought he was born blind, he looked straight into my eyes. It was that moment I felt love like no other. So that's an amazing story. Understand, he was born with this incurable disease. They thought he was blind. Nurse Sarah walks into the nursery, looks at the baby. The little baby stares right into her eyes, and she says, this is faith. I also want to put this out there. Sarah is a mother of 9. A mother of 9, this is plus, and now she's adding a 10th. Sarah, in today's economy, to take care of 9 children is mind-numbing, right? To add a child that has an incurable disease is going to be handicapped for the majority of his life if they don't find a cure, and the heartbreak of what happens if he doesn't continue to live and fight this disease. You are amazing in ways I cannot describe. Congratulations. You deserve the nurse of the week, the nurse of the month, the nurse of the goddamn year. You're the goddamn shit. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Talking about babies, continuing on with talking about babies, let's talk about why there aren't as many babies being born in the U.S. today. So, the U.S. birth rate plummets to the lowest point in 30 years. The U.S. birth rates declined last year for women in their teens, 20s, and surprisingly, their 30s, leading to the fewest babies in 30 years, according to the government report released Thursday. Understand, There was one caveat here. The moms 40 years old increased, but very slightly. I'm going to give you the rest of this context and then we'll talk about why. The provisional report, based on a review of more than 99% of the birth certificates filed nationwide, counted 3.853 million births last year. That's the lowest tally since 1987. That's a whole lot of people. See, when I see that number, then it starts to hit me that America is a really, really big place. 3.8 million, and we're talking about that this is the lowest? Maybe we are overpopulated. Maybe this ain't just that bad of a situation, right? Births have been declining since 2014, but 2017 saw the greatest year-to-year drop, about 92,000 less than the previous year. So, biggest drop from 2016 to 2017 with 92,000 less. So let's talk about why. And I think I know why. It's a simple answer, and I think we all know why, right? There's number one, the big number one is sex education. As with the internet, with people understanding how to functional sex education, women having the right to do so. Good for you. Power to the people. I love that the fact that you guys have that control. That's number one. Number two, I just want to mention, side note, the fact that less teens are having babies is always a good thing, because here in America, just our culture, as teenagers, you're probably still in high school, probably still in college. It's usually unexpected when teenagers have babies. If you're a teenager and you had a baby and you wanted to have a baby, congratulations. But I'm just saying the norm in our society is to wait till you're older, 20s, 30s, 40s, right? And point number three, the fact that women have control and can choose when to have babies now, they are choosing to get settled. They're choosing to get the job that they want to get. They're choosing to have enough money to raise these children, because we know having a child these days is $1 million plus, right? And it's a good thing. It's a great thing, right? Give the power back to the women who are actually carrying these children. It only makes sense. It only makes sense. I think this is good news in all. At the end of the day, this is really good news. But tell me what you guys feel. Good news, bad news. Do we need more babies? Are we okay at this point? 92,000 less from 2016. I think this is a good thing. You guys let me know. So Mark Zuckerberg, the poor Mark Zuckerberg, he's been having a whole rough couple of months. Rough 2018 Mark Zuckerberg, okay? I love you. I love myself Instagram. I love Facebook, but god damn it, you've been in the spotlight for really bad reasons. And here is another one. Nurse related. Can you believe it? Find out. Let's see. So, San Francisco nurses protest the Zuckerberg hospital name. So let me just tell you why. The Zuckerberg name is visible on one of the city's most iconic institutions, and one where privacy is part of the compact. The 146-year-old General Hospital, after a record-setting $75 million gift from Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, the pediatrician Priscilla Chan. In 2015, the General Hospital was renamed Priscilla Chan and Mark Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center. So first and foremost, $75 million is a lot of money. $75 million, and all you want is a name change. Whew. That's a lot of money. Can I just say thank you? I don't know what you're doing with Facebook, but that kind of money given to a hospital can make really good changes. That's a great gift. Good for you. Now, in light of Facebook's recent controversies, a group of nurses are saying that the name makes patients wary, and they have renewed their efforts to have it removed. So, moving on. One of the nurses has said, we are in charge of keeping our most vulnerable people private and protected. She goes on by saying, now people wonder, how much is my privacy protected at a hospital with that name on it? And then Megan Bezorla, I can't say her name. So Nurse Megan also said, Zuckerberg's name scares many of the patients. And I don't agree with these nurses. I'm gonna just be 1,000% with y'all. I do not agree with these nurses. I think these nurses I think this is a little much. I say take it down a notch. It's a simple answer. First of all, $75 million is an insane amount of money. And I know we shouldn't be just bowing over for Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan because they gave us the money, but it is a shit ton of money. And I'm guessing a ton of good things happened with that money because Priscilla Chan is a pediatrician and she knows and understands healthcare more than most people would ever, right? And then with that, talking about Priscilla Chan, yes, Priscilla Chan is married to Mark Zuckerberg, but they're not the same person. So if worse comes to worse and y'all decide to take Mark Zuckerberg's name off of the building, leave Priscilla Chan's name on it. Number one, because she's not Mark Zuckerberg. She doesn't run Facebook. But number two, most importantly, she's a pediatrician. What? I mean, you want a doctor's name in front of the hospital. It only makes sense to me. It only makes sense. Tell me what you guys think. There's one. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to say. The easiest thing in the world, the only thing you should be doing when a patient says I'm worried, is simple answer. Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan donated $75 million to the hospital. They asked to have that name change. That's it. We are not affiliated with Facebook. There is no connection between this and Facebook. That is the answer you give to the patient. I don't see the difficulty. I understand what you guys are saying, and I understand that you don't want to be saying that to every single patient, but that's like the absolute least of any person's worries. I've been in a hospital. Not a single human being is at the hospital is talking about Facebook, and no. They're like, my leg is cut off. Can you help me with this? I just had a heart attack. Can you help me with this? I feel like this is we're getting a little too touchy here. All right? Mark Zuckerberg, he messed up. He did something wrong. If you want to get his name off, sure. I don't agree with you, but sure. But leave Priscilla Chan's name on the damn building. $75 million is a lot. It's a goddamn lot. So Mother's Day was a week ago. Happy Mother's Day to all the nurses, moms out there. You guys are badass. You guys are moms, which is the toughest job on the world. And you guys are nurses, which is the best profession in the world. So good for y'all, and you guys are badasses. But being a mom and working full time is a difficult thing. So yes, this is specific for nurses, but you can also extrapolate and talk about any mom that works in any job full time and is having some struggles. So this segment, I've got 3 tips for y'all for the nurses dealing with working mom guilt. And I didn't know how big of a thing this was, but I will, let me just give you this background story based on, and this is from nurse.org, and it was a blog, and it was written by Shawnee Bruce. And I'm going to tell you her story, and then we can talk about the 3 tips. So, a little bit about her. I'll never forget one of the hardest days of my life as a working mom. I had just returned to work after having my 3rd child, a stubborn baby who refused to take a bottle of any kind. I had been picking up short shifts as I tried desperately to get him to take a bottle. That particular day, I had been mandated. My quick 4-hour shift dragged into 8, then 12, then 16, which only meant one thing. My son was starving. This is a truly, truly, truly sad story, right? Like, it's just heart-wrenching. So we can't control these things. Breastfeeding is looked upon as the best and only way to go about, right? So you pump and you dump, especially if you have to go pump and dump. You pump and you put it in a ball and you give it to your baby, especially if you have to work, right? And that's what majority of moms do that have to get back to work. But her son was not taking any bottles. She can't control that. It's a horrible thing. She was picked up a 4-hour shift that turned into an 8-hour shift, then a 12, then a 16-hour shift. So 16 hours of the baby not taking any of the milk. It's a scary, scary, horrendous situation. Let me just continue. Desperate with screaming and hungry baby, she couldn't feed my mom, who had been watching him, called up to the unit begging me to take a break and come to feed him. I stood at the nurse's station crying because I couldn't even take a break to use the restroom, let alone feed my son. Listening to my son crying because he needed me and my mom crying because she didn't know what to do was overwhelming. I think that this is one of them stories that really get me. I don't know how to feel. Not I don't know how to feel. That's not right. I don't have any experience of this kind of feeling, right? So my heart goes out to you moms out there. This is something that I've never once thought about. It's not something that is a part of my being, my life, right? So sure, I'm lucky, but this is something that all moms must go through, especially if they have to work. It's a scary, scary situation. So I am going to break this down and tell you the 3 tips that Shawnee's came up with that has helped her get through this situation. Okay, so tip number 1: acknowledge your feelings. Pushing your feelings away won't do any good, and instead will eventually stress you out even more. Instead, take a minute and sit with your feelings. Ask yourself what your guilt is trying to tell you. Maybe use a piece of paper to write out the thoughts that come to mind. You can also talk through things with a friend or a partner, whichever method you choose. Try to listen to what your feelings of guilt are telling you. And this sounds exactly like the nursing process. First, you want to assess the situation. Try to understand what your feelings of guilt is. Are you feeling guilty because you can't see your son or your daughter? Are you feeling guilty because you want to have that one-on-one time? Are you feeling guilty because you leaving your son, you leaving your kid, and you like the fact that you have some separation from your child? Are you feeling guilty because you feel like you need to pick up more at work? These are all legitimate reasons, and a million more reasons could be why you're feeling guilty. But try to first understand the actual reason you're feeling guilty, and not just say it's because I have a kid, or not just say it's because I'm a working mom. Try to find out the exact reason, which would then lead us to tip number 2. So, number 2, explore solutions. After you've given your guilt a chance to speak, it's time to get down to diagnosing the problem and working to solve it. So first you have to listen to yourself. Sit down with your feelings and really be honest with yourself and tell yourself, what is causing me to feel this way? Why do I feel like shit no matter what I do? Right? You're between a rock and a hard place. You're a mom. You have a newborn at home. You want to spend every single minute, second with that newborn. Sometimes you need a break. You want to spend as much time as you want with the newborn. But at the same time, you need to go to work to feed this newborn. It is an impossible situation. So you've got to be honest with yourself. First, tell yourself why you feel guilty, and then try to figure out a plan. As a nurse, I've never had this. Like I said, this is not something I need to deal with in my life. But I have worked with nurses that are moms, and I hear them a lot say things like, I hate working 3 days in a row because I don't get to see my child. I hear them saying, I need to go in the back and just be on the phone with my kid. I need to FaceTime with my kid. There's a million different things. I know nurses that used to work full-time, 6 shifts a week, picking up as many hours, and once they have their kid, they switch over to part-time or per diem or whatever so they can spend more time. So you need to understand what the problem is, and then it's impossible. It's hard. You'll never be perfect with everything, but try your hardest. Speak to the manager, speak to your supervisor, speak to the nurses around you, and try to figure the situation out. The last thing I'll say about the nurses I've worked with, there was one situation where a nurse had to go, I think she was having a second or third kid. She didn't have much PTO time left, and this is a whole nother thing that we'll need to talk about later, because that's another huge problem that's causing these issues and guilt, is because here in America we don't have mandatory 12-week maternity leave, which should be an absolute must, especially in healthcare, but that is for another day. Back to the thing I was saying, one of the nurses left, didn't have that much PTO, and the nurses in the unit decided, you know what, we're going to start, each of us starting to give her some of the PTO that we've have in our saving bank and let her use that, which I think is just amazing, right? So share your feelings, talk to whoever you need to talk to, and try to come up with a sensible, resolve. And then the last tip, change the way your words. I never thought about this. I would have never thought about this in a million years, and I think this is the most creative tip of the 3. She says, I believe that as moms, there's never a simple solution to banishing working mom guilt, if ever. It's a lifelong struggle, but one key strategy has helped me enormously in my own battle with mom guilt is changing how I talk about work. Instead of telling my kids that I have to go to work, complete with a sorrowful expression and a tear in my eye, I tell them that I get to go to work. And I love that. I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing. I mean, if just using if you changing the language about what you do every day, which is being a nurse, helps you look at it in a more positive way, by all means do it. And I love this because it's the most subtle, simple change that you can use that can really make your outlook on life, your outlook on work, your outlook on having a kid and going to work as positive as ever, right? So instead of saying, oh my God, I have to work, I have to go to work, I can't be with my baby, you tell your kid, I get to go to work, I get to help out other patients, I get to give some empathy, some compassion to people just like I would for you, right? And I get to share that with the world. And that would, I feel just saying that a little bit better. So yeah, those are the 3 tips. Number 1, acknowledge the problem. Why you're feeling what you're feeling. Number 2, try to talk and figure out a simple solution, a complex solution, any solution to your problem. And last but not least, try to change the way you look at things by changing your language when talking about work and the mom guilt and having a kid and being a working mom and being a super goddamn hero. Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry, no pictures, no extreme cool stuff happening today, but we'll be jumping back on that next week. Just a whole lot happened this week with the Red Sox game. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Catch y'all later. Deuces.